Today we're breaking down the latest offseason in the New Orleans Saints franchise and previewing what's to come in Season 4. Welcome back to the series, everybody. I did the stream for this offseason last Saturday. I'll have that linked if you want to watch the around 3-hour version of the offseason. But here is the shortened version, which began with a simple question. What are we doing this year at the quarterback position? I love the way David Mayweather played last year, but it's hard to put all that trust into a rookie quarterback that was only meant to be a backup and has normal development, with a team now that's in position to perhaps take one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. I knew we'd make a few changes this offseason. I wanted to look at running back, receiver. On the defensive side, I wanted to be more aggressive in trying to address safety, taking a look if there are any D tackles out there, and seeing what else free agency may bring our way. But I have focused a lot on the quarterbacks this year. It's the first strong quarterback class in this franchise, with 3 quarterbacks I really liked at the top. Blake Westbrook at one point had top 5 talent, but things changed throughout the year. I still thought he would be the best overall quarterback, but I did like Trent Ainsworth the most. I thought he checked more boxes, had more strengths than Westbrook, just by a little bit. This was also meant to be a strong receiver class, and I wanted to be more aggressive in finding that number 2 opposite Chris Olave. Part of why it's a strong class is because the number 1 prospect is a wide receiver. A really strong prospect, Donald Ryans out of Alabama. Obviously, if we're looking at a quarterback early, that wouldn't work for us. So what else was out there? I saw a lot of receivers that had a lot of similarities to like Jacoby Pearman or Chris Olave, and I really wanted to find a little bit different skill set or somebody that was just a really adept route runner. And instead, this class had your deep threat receivers and then some more raw height, weight, speed guys. I did, however, really like Chad Binns to be one of the closest things to what I was looking for in this class, who could be drafted on day 2. But I had to stack that need up against what I wanted to do at running back. I've wanted somebody with a bit more explosiveness and to look ahead to the future with Alvin Kamara turning 31 and regressing. Tavares Cofield looked like an outstanding, dynamic lead running back that I've wanted to draft for a while. But I knew that if I was picking at 7, I might have to move up from there even for a quarterback. How would that impact our second round picks and being able to maybe address those other needs? So we kicked the offseason off, and the first order of business was to look for a new defensive coordinator. And wouldn't you know it, I ended up hiring the wrong guy, actually, after going through a bunch of coordinators. I thought I had found the coach with the right coaching trees, I guess, skill trees. So I actually ended up hiring Adam Rodgers, who does have some things that I really like. The D-line guru, I think, will be nice. The zone secondary, I know we play a lot of man. I played a lot of zone last year just because man wasn't getting the job done. The awareness boost is really nice. And I think if I go down all the way with the D-line guru, I can get some more valuable skills for power rushing, which is kind of an emphasis I have with the pass rush right now. I'm hoping that helps us develop the interior a bit better. Here's a look at the retirements again. We did lose John Feliciano. Eric Kendricks retired after we cut him and he went to the Steelers. And there are some big names now hanging up the cleats. The franchise should be changing. This is where things get really fun. I was really interested in mock draft 3. I wanted to know where the quarterbacks would land. Trent Ainsworth now projected to go at 2. Blake Westbrook to 5. Which meant if we wanted to get one of my favorite 2 quarterbacks, I'd have to move up. Otherwise, I'd be taking my 3rd quarterback in Hunter Boone. And I was far more fixated on the top 2 options. But the draft wasn't quite here yet. We had to go to re-sign free agents. I did not pick up the option on Brian Bressee's 5th year. He's missed 10 games. His development's been a little bit slow, and he is good, but I don't think he should be getting that 5th year option payday. Then we had a lot of veterans I just did not want to re-sign. Alvin Kamara, KJ Osborne, trying to find new running backs and receivers to lead us into the future. There were a couple players I did want to bring back. I ended up offering a contract to our kicker, Blake Grupe. He's been really good, so offered him a 2-year contract and he accepted. And then returned to negotiate with Reggie Gilliam, the fullback that I really liked having last year. Offered him 2 years, $10 million, and that gets the job done. And led us into unrestricted free agency. I knew we have some money and some opportunity. Here we go with Trevor Lawrence available. I knew this was a possibility. However, there is no interest from Trevor in coming to New Orleans. But there is interest from Garrett Wilson reuniting with his Buckeye teammates. Most of these top prospects want nothing to do with us, and that totally impacts the way I approach free agency. If Garrett Wilson is interested, I'm absolutely giving him an offer. We kicked it off here with 4 years, $74 million to get us into that upper tier. Now, there were a lot that wanted me to offer to Trevor Lawrence anyway. However, we didn't have the cap space to offer to both him and Wilson. And they're both going to sign after like the first day of free agency. It just comes down to which team. So I wasn't going to pull the offer on Wilson for a slim chance at Trevor Lawrence, with 17 teams interested. I'm focusing on players that are a little more realistic to get. I was hoping that running back Kenneth Walker would be available, but he got the franchise tag, so I never had a chance. I believe it was pretty recent they actually made it so the CPU could handle 5th-year option decisions and franchise tag decisions, and there's a lot happening in our league as a result. The Ravens restructuring 4 deals to make room for Ronnie Stanley. So that's pretty cool to see, along with all these coordinator changes and former head coaches now getting demoted essentially. Sean McVay, Brian Daboll, Kevin O'Connell, those are your OCs getting signed this year. Let's go back to free agency. As long as a player has a little interest, I can get on board, especially if no teams are offering. So I wanted to give a 3-year deal to Julian Love. Then we upped the offer for Garrett Wilson because I knew we'd have the cap space and I wanted to make sure I had the largest offer, going to $20 million a season. This gave us the 5-bar offer clearly at the top. Then I offered a contract to Eric Armstead. I thought he'd be a solid addition plus a mentor for a really young defensive tackle group. And then Zaven Collins was interested. And we could use an additional linebacker, especially with some cover ability. He has a lot more than James Bolden and is 27 years old. So he also received a 3-year offer. That gave us 4 players I really wanted to add, which would eat up most of our available cap space. Those deals were then evaluated, and we signed Garrett Wilson and Zaven Collins. Really strong start to the offseason, adding another number 1 caliber wideout alongside his Buckeye teammate Chris Olave. No, we're not about to trade for Justin Fields, but I'm glad to have these two reunited. And then Zaven Collins defensively. I'm just trying to get a team that's just a lot more complete on defense so we can hopefully turn things around from where we were a year ago. We do end up seeing that Trevor Lawrence chose the Texans. For some reason, just like last year, they're trying to sign the top quarterback in free agency when they view CJ Stroud as their franchise quarterback. Now, he doesn't have the most motivation in coming back, but they still control him for 2 seasons, so it doesn't make any sense. So I undid that again, and after the next stage, we do bring in Eric Armstead. 3 solid additions. We take a quick detour then to look at trading away Sam Darnold. No longer needed here, we trade him to the Commanders for a 7th round selection. Mock Draft 4 is now available. Let's take a look at how things unfold now. Ainsworth at 2. The Patriots taking a quarterback at 3, and it's Chris Hale. So that also was a little bit worrying that another team could be in the quarterback market. I thought 4 was our best spot to look at trading up with the Cardinals, who have Kyler Murray. Free agency was a big success. We got all 4 of our main targets eventually. And Trevor Lawrence then ends up going to the New England Patriots, taking them out of the quarterback running and giving him a new team. That does mean that Mac Jones is now the QB2. They no longer view him as the franchise option. So we'll see if they end up trading him naturally, or I might jump in to force a Mac Jones trade somewhere down the road. Here are the other big signings that went down, though, this offseason. Good to see a pretty eventful free agent class. A lot of good tackles. Trevor Lawrence, starting caliber corners, defensive tackles. Garrett Wilson was out there. When free agency is fun, it's a lot better for the franchise, and it's cool to see movement and things changing. So we only got 4 players, but 4 high-quality starters, leaving us $12 million available in cap space. I was pretty content there. Sam Howell, by the way, he ends up going to the Rams. Jameis Winston goes to the Commanders. A little bit of quarterback movement this year. But let's get on to the NFL draft now. Still some positions we hadn't addressed, and a chance now to try and find our quarterback of the future. It's about to be season 4, and this was the first time I was really interested in adding a first-round quarterback. Now, we get the ball rolling here with Donald Ryans going to the Commanders at number 1 as expected, and at 2, the New York Giants replacing Daniel Jones with Trent Ainsworth. That's what we expected. I was no longer going to get Ainsworth. Patriots at 3, no longer looking QB, go pass rusher Shane Ford. 4 was my spot to leapfrog Seattle. And this is really an interesting spot because you have one of their rivals, Arizona, who you would, let's say they have extra motivation to make sure Seattle doesn't get QB2. So it took a little bit of figuring out a trade, but eventually surrendering this year's 3rd, next year's 3rd, we move up 3 spots, and we do select quarterback Blake Westbrook. I did think he would be the first quarterback off the board before seeing the mock draft change. So let's see, did we get the best quarterback in the drafts? Normal development. That is a little disappointing for a quarterback that was, showing so much promise, but there were a lot of really high graded skills for him. I thought he would have a really high overall. It's just no hidden development does sting. Leapfrogging Seattle means they take the 3rd quarterback, and that is Hunter Boone. The top options are off the board in the first 5 selections. Arizona down at 7, they end up going tackle, and they could have drafted that tackle probably at 4 or 7, so works out for them. Later in the first round, we see Malik Akins, a receiver, go to the Chargers, and the Jaguars now take a new quarterback in Grant Woodard. In the 20s, I was plotting my way up the board. I knew I'd have a chance to take another really good prospect, whether it was Tavares Cofield at running back, or do we go for another safety? This has been a spot I've talked about all series, but I haven't spent the early pick to get the talent I'm looking for. So I tried to look at moving up to 23, which would be moving up like 16 selections, and the price was pretty high. I knew I might have another option, though, when it came to running back. How about Colts' second running back, Jadarius Roby? We got to see him last year when Jonathan Taylor was injured. And with Taylor there, he doesn't have a path to any significant playing time outside of injury. So I knew in the back of my head, he was also an option. We let the draft unfold a little bit to try and make the price to move up cheaper. Then we come back around to Cincinnati, offering them both of our 2s and a 7, and they take that offer. So we're back into the first round. And after these years of Waiting on safeties, I decide we're going to take one now. Johnny Fenderson out of LSU. He's going nowhere. He can stay right in Louisiana, and we get a hidden dev safety instead of going running back. Not an easy decision there, and Tavares Cofield fit exactly what I was looking for. But I know we don't need to necessarily take the running back there. We have some other options. And not picking now until the 4th round, I knew I'd probably have to go and see if I could get Jadarius Roby. And I felt like maybe one of the best ways for us to make this work was to offer them Marshon Lattimore. Yes, I know that's going to be a surprise to many. Lattimore is entering the last year of his deal. He's now 30 years old, and he also hasn't played great here in the franchise, whether that be the sliders or whatever. Probably a lot to do with the sliders. But I've been ready to potentially move on. We have some intriguing corners, and I feel like Tommy Tomlinson, Tyrell Stoudemire, and Paulson Adebo have all been playmakers, while Lattimore has been far quieter and hasn't been a shutdown corner. So we're just going to start new, and we're going to move on. We get a running back, we get a 2nd round pick, we ask for a lot in return, but they're getting what can be a top 5 caliber cornerback. Now, I didn't realize at the time that they had a lot of good corners, but Lattimore is still a significant boost for them and gives them maybe the best cornerback pairing in all of football. So moving on from there, in the 2nd round, it doesn't take long for Tavares Cofield to come off the board. He goes to Arizona. In getting that 2nd round pick now, we had a chance to take another prospect I really liked. There was wide receiver Chad Binns and corner Alex Sharp. I was targeting the two of them, and Sharp had really good skills. Very similar to what we've seen from Tomlinson and Stoudemire. I can't ignore those A grades on day 2. We move up a bit further to secure one of them. And we do end up taking Alex Sharp from Ohio State. Another Buckeye. After we traded away a Buckeye corner, we replace him with another one. Alex Sharp gives us a 4th corner, a really deep group, and allows us to hopefully look ahead to the future, still having a chance to build a good secondary. There was such a steep drop then going into the 4th round, I was more interested in trading out of this spot and was looking for a future 3, which I was able to get from the LA Rams. We wouldn't pick again until later in the 5th round, when there were still some options I liked on the board. And this one here, this is all chat influencing me into making a pick. Really fast receiver here in Barry Skelton, 99 speed, giving us some additional receiver depth. And I don't think without the chat that I would have ended up selecting him. With our next pick, I regained control of my own franchise to take a receiver I wanted because I thought I could develop him as a route runner. Antoine Priestley out of Michigan State. 91 speed, 91 acceleration, definitely down on the depth chart now with all these additions. And then we finished up our draft with a few more picks, but let's go through the ratings. Blake Westbrook, the quarterback, was our first selection. We ended up drafting a 76 overall quarterback. Not bad. I was hoping for that or maybe even higher. But he has normal dev, and he's going to need some development, obviously, to his accuracies. His deep accuracy is getting a boost, but low 80s is not as comfortable as it was in past games. I think he's a well-rounded quarterback that doesn't yet have that strength to lean on. He has to develop that. And then at safety, Johnny Fenderson gives us a versatile safety that we can develop into someone who can actually be a game changer when safety's been kind of a weak position in this series. Alex Sharp then at cornerback gives us a skill set I've been looking for with press ability, man coverage, great size, but someone's going to eventually have to show they can play inside. Barry Skelton with his great speed. We wanted to see what he would look like as a running back because he has, 74 carrying isn't awful. He's not going to be a lead running back. His overall goes down, but I actually think I like him better as a running back, especially in a more specific pass-catching style role. Antoine Priestley. I'm really happy with this selection because I think I can develop him into that slot receiver that maybe I never developed A.T. Perry quite into. Sergio Rhodes was our next pick to add another cover safety who has good zone coverage, can move pretty effectively. And then we rounded out here. We took Jazir Selvey, a backup caliber D tackle, and Julian Ash at center, again to provide depth after the retirement of John Feliciano. Let me know down below what you thought of our draft this year. There were a lot of directions we could have gone. But here are players that went elsewhere, with wide receiver Donald Ryans looking like he can step in and be an impact player from day one in Washington. Now, Trent Ainsworth went to the Giants. He too had normal development. He was my favorite quarterback, but he has a lot of work to do just like Westbrook and doesn't have that benefit of the higher dev. But how about the third quarterback? Hunter Boone did have hidden all along. He might have been the quarterback that we should have selected. He does have really solid deep and short accuracy, a little bit better than Westbrook right now, and he's going to develop a little bit quicker, especially early in his career. Down at 18 overall, the Jaguars selected Grant Woodard. He also has the hidden development. He's a deep passer. Maybe he'll become more, but another solid option with that hidden dev. And then you've got Tavares Cofield, who we did pass on to take a safety. He's got that great speed, pass-catching ability, so much to like in his game. But hopefully we made the right choice in adding Jadarius Roby. Wide receiver Chad Binns, normal development. He and Priestley were really the same archetype of receiver, but Binns is more further along. He has better short accuracy or short route running, more day one usable than Antoine Priestley. The Bears took a hidden dev quarterback in round 2. All these quarterbacks with hidden development were not the first 2 selected or top 2 projected even. Cardinals had themselves a good draft. They took Cofield, took a tackle in the first, and then Oscar Rushing, maybe the best linebacker in this draft, and this was round 3. He can do it all, and do it pretty quickly as well with 90 speed. Here's a look at our schedule next year. Again, we open against the Buccaneers. Every year this happens. We get those Cardinals in week 3, by the way. They have a fun young roster. We got the Ravens and the AFC North on the schedule. The division games begin in week 5, but just like last year, those games are really concentrated in the second half of the schedule. And we don't close against a division opponent either. We finish up against the Broncos, actually. There are some teams that would have been more fun for us to face this year, but I'm sure there will be some interesting matchups along the way, especially if we're actually a better team. So we've added a new quarterback, wide receiver, new starting running back in Jadarius Roby. I know Roby doesn't have that breakaway speed, that game-changing ability I've been looking for. I was okay getting it through a secondary back. It didn't have to be our lead running back. But I think Roby can just be really good, and if our blocking is like it was last year, you can throw almost anybody there and be productive. But I want a good player, and I think we got one. On defense now, no more Marshawn Lattimore. We're going to move ahead with, I think, a pretty good corner group anyway. We're going to have 2 new starting safeties, and I'll figure out what to do next with Jabril Peppers. I did go through training camp in the preseason to see a few players and to look at Westbrook's delivery because I knew it was supposed to be a slower one. It looks pretty standard to me. It's clearly not one of the fastest ones, but I don't think it'll be a detriment. And once we get to preseason, we will have Mayweather versus Westbrook to be QB1 in Week 1. What I'm doing here in preseason is I want to see if Mayweather plays like he did last year during the regular season. And if that checks out, I'll be comfortable moving on from Trey Lance. If he regresses and plays more like he did in the preseason last year, then it gets messier. Then you pretty much see Westbrook probably start from day one. And I'm hoping this year we can see a lot of development out of the draft picks in this series. We need it. Guys like Justin Medlock and Juan Beard all have to take a leap. We had an awful defense last year, and I'm hoping that with some slider changes and just new players that hopefully things are smoother. I have gone ahead now and I've edited the numbers and appearances for some players, gotten them some gear. You can take a look at all that here, but I'm not sure a series like this for me has ever been dependent on this much normal development talent. We've not had the best luck at getting high dev traits with our picks in this series, so we're going to need mentorships, breakout scenarios, and big games to really see how we're going to get this team back to the postseason and to win our first postseason games of the franchise. Also, in our backfield, I want to take a look at a couple players this year. I never really got to see Eric Stills behind this new blocking we had last year. He does have some explosiveness, but I also added a veteran in Zamir White, who I think can be a little bit better. He's a couple years older, but those two have a chance to make this roster. And then we'll see. Barry Skelton, can he give us some big playability? Can he do something in the passing game? He's extremely fast, and there's a reason I gave him number 42. Don't think too hard. Another move I made after the stream was signing cornerback Jonathan Jones. We have a lot of young corners. He's a good mentor, but also he's a better athlete, even at his age, than the corners we have. And I want to see that athleticism, and if there's something maybe I've been missing with this secondary, because we certainly don't have the top tier athletes there. We have great size and some cover ability, but we're also going to be signing then Jadeveon Clowney for edge depth and to help mentor guys like Juan Beard. If we're trying to develop some normal dev talent, we should definitely get mentors behind them to try to give them as much of a boost as we can. And when it comes to the sliders, here's what I'm playing with right now, but it is kind of fluid, a work in progress. Tweaked the speed threshold, some sliders on the CPU side, some penalties. I'm probably going to play preseason on my own because I might adjust things from game to game. And hopefully we have something better for year 4 that gives us better, more ratings-based feeling games. And the last thing here when it comes to Mac Jones, like I said earlier, I first want to see if anybody trades for him naturally. If it doesn't work out, I will try to find the best landing spot that makes sense and take that team over to acquire Jones, and we'll go from there. But that is it for today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this offseason here in the Saints franchise. We'll see if these moves are enough to get us back to the postseason and to have a much more competitive roster and season. Thank you all for watching. Leave your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time. Have a great day.